true. Number 10. Scream. Wes Craven's Scream became an instant classic when it was released back in 1996, as it provided a satirical take on the slasher genre's many cliches, and resulted in a refreshing, highly original horror film. Despite its comedic elements, however, the film also inspired several real-life murders. In January 1998, 16-year-old Mario Padilla and his 14-year-old cousin became the center of a media frenzy surrounding what was referred to as the Scream murder. His cousin Ramirez confessed to helping hold down Padilla's mother, as Padilla himself proceeded to stab her 45 times. They confessed to being inspired by Scream and its sequel, and to planning a murder spree after purchasing 2 Ghostface costumes and a voice changer like those used in the film. Number 9. The Conjuring. During the making of the 2013 supernatural horror film, the real-life family around whom the events were based visited the set several times. Enter stage left some pant-wettingly scary events. Once, while the Perron family were visiting, a strong wind seemed to surround them and blow through the set despite the trees nearby not moving at all. At the same time, the mother, Carolyn, who was at home in Atlanta, felt a strange evil presence in the house shortly before falling and having to be taken to hospital. Also, one night, James Wan, the film's director, was working late in his office when his dog started growling viciously. Upon investigating, Wan found that there was nothing there, but the dog continued to focus on some unseen entity in the corner. Then, despite Wan seeing nothing, the dog's head moved, its eyes slowly following something across the room. No thank you, please. Number 8. Saw. There are a total of 7 films making up the Saw franchise at this present time, and each revolves around sadistic killer Jigsaw and his penchant for elaborate death traps which scream of a man with too much time on his hands. In 2009, 2 teenagers aged 14 and 15 were charged as juveniles with 3 counts of conspiracy to commit aggravated kidnapping after one of the boys' mothers overheard them planning to abduct, torture, and murder several people. The 2 boys had detailed plans to set up Saw-style games to teach lessons to people they claimed were hurting others, including a police officer and 2 young girls. The boys had even procured cameras in order to document the murders, just as Jigsaw does in the Saw movies. Number 7. Child's Play. The cult horror movie series Child's Play consists of 6 films featuring the iconic character Chucky, a toy doll inhabited by the spirit of a vicious serial killer. Now, despite its rather strange premise, it's actually responsible for inspiring a series of copycat killings. The most notorious case was that of Martin Bryant, Australia's most prolific mass murderer. In 1996, Bryant went on a killing spree in Port Arthur, shooting 35 people and injuring 23 others. Bryant, who had an IQ of just 66, was obsessed with Child's Play 2, and the film's influence was submitted by a psychiatrist as being a contributing factor for his crimes. He was reportedly obsessed with the childlike characteristics of the doll and its ability to wreak vengeful destruction. Number 6. Nightmare on Elm Street. Another classic Wes Craven film, Nightmare on Elm Street features the tendon terror Freddy Krueger, who visits his victims in their dreams before murdering them. In 2004, the paranoid schizophrenic Daniel Gonzalez went on a drug-fueled rampage, murdering 4 people and injuring 2 others. It later emerged that the killer had been inspired by Nightmare on Elm Street and had a desire himself to become a famous serial killer. Gonzalez would later write letters to himself in which he would describe how much he enjoyed committing the murders and how he was similar to Freddy Krueger. In what might be an even creepier example of a horror movie eerily becoming true is the existence of what is known as nightmare death syndrome. The condition in which otherwise healthy young men die during sleep is not well understood and seems to mostly affect young Asian men. Most victims are reported to be heard moaning and groaning in their sleep before the death occurs. Number 5. Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby is a 1968 film about a pregnant woman who fears her husband has signed a pact with a Satan-worshipping cult, offering the unborn child as a sacrifice in their rituals. In 1969, director Roman Polanski was working in London while his pregnant wife Sharon Tate was at their home in Los Angeles. On the 8th of August 1969, Sharon Tate, her unborn baby, and several others were viciously murdered at the Polanski home. After months with no explanation, it was eventually revealed that the murders were committed by members of the Manson family under the instruction of Charles Manson. Number 4. Interview with the Vampire. On the evening of November 17th, 1994, Lisa Stellwagen and her long-term boyfriend Daniel Sterling watched Interview with the Vampire together. At approximately 3 a.m., Stellwagen awoke to find Sterling awake and staring strangely at her. He reportedly said, "Tonight you are going to die. I'm going to kill you and drink your blood." The next day, Sterling stabbed Stellwagen several times in the chest and back before sucking the blood from her wounds. He later admitted to believing in vampires and being inspired by the movie. Number 3. Poltergeist. I Okay, so the following entry, while not strictly an example of a horror movie coming true, has to be one of the strangest coincidences in horror movie history. In this scene, the two children are being terrified by a creepy toy clown, which is obviously just what you want to see at that age, right? But did you notice the poster on the wall? I mean, probably not, as you know, clowns, but it says 1988 Super Bowl 22. Now, there's nothing particularly strange about a young boy having a Super Bowl poster on his wall. It's that this film was released in 1982, 6 years before Super Bowl 22 would air. What's even stranger is what happened 6 years after the film's release. On the 31st of January 1988, Heather O'Rourke, the actress who played the little girl in the film and its sequels, suddenly became violently ill. The next morning, she collapsed and paramedics had to be called. On the way to hospital, she suffered a cardiac arrest, and after resuscitation was airlifted to hospital, where she died later that day. She was just 12 years old. But do you know what else happened on the 31st of January 1988? Yes, you guessed it. Super Bowl 22. Number 2. Queen of the Damned. In 2002, Alan Menzies murdered his friend Thomas McKentrick after watching Queen of the Damned over 100 times. Menzies claimed that one night he was visited by Akasha, a female vampire in the movies. He claimed that she ordered him to kill people, and in return she would award him eternal life as a vampire. Menzies went on record to state, "In general terms, she started off having conversations with me, and it ended up that I basically agreed with her that if I murdered people, I would be rewarded in the next life." After Menzies stabbed his childhood friend with a Bowie knife and beat him with a hammer, he drank his blood and ate some of his flesh before burying him in a shallow grave. The body was found 6 weeks later. And number 1, The Possession. The Possession is a 2012 supernatural horror film produced by Sam Raimi. It is based on the story of an allegedly haunted diebuck box. The film star Jeffrey Dean Morgan claims to be a skeptic, but had to confess to some strange things happening during the making of the film. Lights would continually blow during filming despite there being no apparent electronical faults, and several times the set would become freezing cold without explanation. The strangest incident was a fire that